Hey, what's going on, everybody? I hope that you're all having an amazing weekend here on Sunday. Today's video, I want to address, I guess, a part 2 of one of the videos that I did last week here on my channel, and I'm going to show you here. It was this video here. It was basically how I was talking about how that I think the players should be skipping some of the older Horseman teams and why. And my ethos being that you should be focusing on the things that are in front of you, the newer characters, things like that. And so I want to address the criticism on that as well. I also want to, because there was in the comments section of that video, and I also want to talk about my own tier list of the characters that I do recommend, because I got a lot of comments about, well, okay, if I'm saying don't build this, then what should you be building? And that's what I'm going to be addressing in this video and the stuff, basically just thinking about the stuff in front of you, not that it's ages behind. We're also going to talk about some other characters that you probably will need to build anyways, but they're not on the tier list. It's because the stuff on the tier list is stuff that you'll be building to a pretty high degree, to like the tier 16 plus level. I'm not, when I say build, I talk about like tier 16 plus. I don't talk about like tier 14 or tier 12. That's other characters that you might need to build along the way, but the investment required in that is quite limited. So we'll talk about all of that and more in today's video. Before we do get started in the video, though, I have a quick ad of my own. It's actually from me, so hopefully you'll stop and listen to that before we get to the video. Hey everyone, so I just wanted to let people know as well that coming up on Wednesday is going to be the global launch of Lord of the Rings Heroes of Middle-earth. Now, some of you might have heard me talk about this game over the last little while because I have been starting to play this. As you can see, I'm level 37 right now and climbing. And I also just wanted to let people know on this channel that I will plan on covering this content and this game, especially as we move towards global launch and beyond. And for that purpose, I do want to let people know that I have started a new side channel. Actually, I've just repurposed my Marvel Snap channel, which didn't really go anywhere because I didn't do much about it, called Boilon Lord of the Rings Heroes for Middle-earth. Now, you can also get to the link by youtube.com/BoilonLOTR, and I would really love it, especially for those of you who do plan on giving Lord of the Rings a shot and playing with it, if you guys could go over to the channel and help subscribe to this so that I can get myself remonetized for this second side channel, because I'm going to need to be able to do that if I want to make a little bit of money on this game. So yes, unfortunately I have to start from the bottom up on my second channel, and hopefully I can get help from all of you great people out here who both follow my Marvel Strike Force content and maybe plan to follow my Lord of the Rings content as well. So if you go over to the channel at BoilonLOTR and hit that subscribe button, that would really, really help, especially on the way to global launch and beyond. So just wanted to do a quick shout out for that before we get to the main content for today. And here I present to you the awfully designed tier list Boilon for patch 7.1. I'm going to have to add that in there somewhere. So this is for 7.1 coming forward. So some things that are not listed on here that I will update once I get the avatar icons for that will be the new Nowhere team. Right, so obviously they're going to be highly meta. I don't have their little character icons yet, so I can't place them in here. When I do post this onto my Discord, though, I will include that. So just keep in mind, yes, I do think that they're going to be a very meta team and going to be worth building. And as like I said, I normally focus on the things in front of me as well. There is some things that I just want to start off with by talking about is the Guardians. And down here I have it tagged as maybe future. So there's some adjustments coming to these characters, I think. But I don't think it's going to be a full-blown rework, because there's no new characters associated with them necessarily. We do have Cosmo and Star-Lord Annihilation that are going to have the Guardians tag, but none of their kits actually contains text above Guardians. So what would happen, I guess, is that if you used regular Star-Lord, his passive would then carry over onto characters like Cosmo and Star-Lord Annihilation outside of, well, in any game mode. But I mean, maybe there would be some mix and match for Crucible. I don't think that the reworks that are going to be coming to these characters, if at all, is going to be substantial. You've heard me talk about Wakandans in the past, and I would do this at your own risk. Personally, my account has done just fine without upgrading War Dogs, with the exception of Shuri, because I did build her for Dark Dimension 5. But everyone else, you've probably seen my roster before, they're sitting at like the gear tier 12, 13 kind of level. I didn't really build them to any large degree. So if anything does come to the Guardians down here below, these ones here, maybe Nebula. I heard that Nebula's getting the Guardians tag. I think a lot of this is just to fulfill criteria for Gamma. I think it's maybe just to make them a little bit better for Gamma. Same with Cosmo and Star-Lord Annihilation, to be able to use them in there. I don't think that really there's going to be anything super crazy coming to these characters. So that's why they're down there in their own category. And I would, build anything that happens to them, I would do that at your own risk, personally. And that leads me to this sort of what I call the dropping off / at your own risk tier category. These are not bad characters, but I think they're very risky investments at this point in time. I think that not only are they falling off, but they're also poised to probably be replaced in the near future. So we're just going to jump ahead a bit. So teams like Bionic Avengers, for example, they're dropping off. They're probably going to be the next team that gets replaced, honestly, in the raid category. And I think that I would put Bionic Avengers in the same place where I would put Axeman from like a year ago before we got Deathseed. So I don't think that everyone needs to push for 100% clear rate. And if you don't have Bionic Avengers built, what I would say is don't build them. And if your alliance leader is super dead on about you building that, I would find another raid alliance, to be completely honest, because it's not worth wasting your resources in a team that's going to be falling off. It could even be 3 to 6 months from now, honestly, but I still wouldn't do it because they're just not that new incursion raid team that's going to be coming at some point later down the line, and I would focus on the things in front of you, and it's kind of sad, actually, how fast the Bionic Avengers did fall off, because we're not even at a year yet. The Hulkbuster came out in August, September. Kind of sad, to be honest, that that team did not stay on that long. Now, Dr. Doom and Kestrel, they're good plug and plays, but I think that they're not really worth building at this point in time. Now, for me, you've heard me talk about that I don't believe that new players should invest in the Apocalypse grind. And you're going to find that a lot of the characters that I don't recommend are personally falling off, which also contains a lot of the Horseman team characters. Not the Horsemen themselves necessarily, but the team writ large. And so yes, if you're not even halfway to getting Baby Apocalypse, I would reconsider this grind, because I don't think that it's going to be worth it in the long term. You're absolutely not going to want to go for Big Apocalypse, that's for sure, because that's going to take forever. And even for me, like I'm only like a quarter of the way through for Blue 5 Ions, honestly. It's going to take effing forever. And by the time you do get there, there's going to be a mountain of characters that you've missed because you've been focusing too much on these characters here. So I would really be cautious with the majority of the characters and teams that are in the drop-off / at your own risk category, which contains Doom, Kestrel, Bionic Avengers, War Dogs, all of the Wakandans, frankly, at this point, Darkhold, Unlimited X-Men, and even Gamma. Now, I was on the fence about including Gamma here in this category because I love Gamma. I think they're a really great team, and they're very well-rounded, actually. And they're a lot more well-rounded than Unlimited X-Men and Darkhold Actually, Darkhold's fairly well-rounded, but I just still would... It's just too old now. My issue with Gamma is that they're being nerfed to hell in Cosmic Crucible Season 3. And while they're still a very strong war team, I think that their broader usage in other game modes is coming to an end slowly, especially with that additional nerf that was added into the rules of Season 3 Crucible, which was really disappointing, that they basically just tacked on Gamma as well as Darkhold. So Darkhold's still being nerfed in Crucible. Unlimited X-Men have been really falling off as well in the Crucible category, and they kind of suck in the other game modes. They suck in War, and you're not really using them in raids. So it's just, there's not a lot of broad usage. The majority of the reason why you would want to build these characters now would be for Apocalypse, but if you're in the category of players who are new and are less than level 75 or 80, these are for sure skips for you. I just don't think it's good investment. So I'm personally, for these three teams, I am not going to recommend it. If you still want to carry forward to do it, that's on you. And I leave that decision up to everyone who's watching this video to decide whether or not you want to do that. But I personally, if I was doing it again, I would not do it at this point in time. I think it's a bit late. I think that you want to focus on the stuff that's immediately in front of you, especially the last 6 months primarily, because those are the characters that are going to do you in the meta very well. And, for those people who say, well, you need more than just these characters. Yeah, you do a little bit, but there's always there's a new character coming out every single week in this game. Literally, like every single week. So there's going to be opportunities for more characters. If you're not satisfied with the ones that are out just now, there's going to be a new one every single week. And so you'll find those sets of characters that will fill in the gaps for those that are newer, that are stronger, that have better stats than some of these ones, especially in this category here. So I really just want to make mention in that. And while we're here, I want to do some honorable mentions for flash events. So none of those are listed here. I think the majority of them are honestly garbage, but you also don't need to build them to any high degree in order to clear them. So the one Flash event that I think has the highest priority is Payday. So Payday is 5.3 million, 2 million, 5 million something every month. And that I think is good. And you need the Merc characters for that. So, I mean, I would typically focus on characters like Taskmaster. I don't know what is it now. Merc Riot, the Mercs. You don't need help with that. You typically, I think. Oh, sorry, Killmonger as well. He's actually a Merc, so you might want to take him up to gear tier 12. I think that's honestly as high as you need to take them for tier 7 of the Flash events. I think it's like gear tier 12, level 60. It's not very high. So even though it says don't build these, you could build Killmonger to level 60. That's fine, and that's not a big deal. As far as some of these other characters up here in these categories that are legendary characters, then you will need to obviously get the other characters that unlock them to about the level 60 range to make sure that you get the star levels for them. So that's just kind of obvious. Like, I shouldn't need to really explain that part, but I'm going to do that now anyways as we go through each of these characters individually and teams in here. So the characters and teams that are in the meta category, who I would also put in here, for example, like I said earlier on, in the must build category, I'm going to slap Nova in there, and then Meta for the rest of the Nowhere team who are going to be in here as well. And when I get a chance to be able to update that to add the avatar icons in, they're going to be included in that too. So let's start with Dormammu. I honestly think he is probably one of the best plug and play characters because of his mechanics, and I think he's going to hold for quite some time. I think the reason why Doom is kind of falling off a little bit is his stats. There's so many characters that ability block now, and while he's a good character, I think he's just not as good as Dormammu. So if I had to because you need to go through Doom to get to Dormammu, but if you're resource crunched, I would definitely just wait, and then once you unlock Dormammu, gear him up instead, because he's going to be better, and he's going to be worth your time more than someone like Dr. Doom, unfortunately. Spider-Man 2099. This is common. He's not as must build as Spider-Weaver, but I still think that he's a very solid duo with Spider-Weaver, whether that's in Crucible or in other game modes, because of the way that their kits interact. So he's someone that you probably would want to take anything in the meta category, and definitely in the must build category, is gear tier 16 plus, is what you should do. Spider-Man 2099, I do have a gear tier 16. I would not take him to 17, because my thoughts are that if you're not willing to take them to gear tier 18, which is coming out next patch, then you probably don't need to bother with the 17, because you're going to probably want to use that resources towards characters that you're absolutely taking to gear tier 18. And actually, a lot of the characters that are going to be in the must build category are going to be characters that I am considering for Dark Dimension 6. That's going to be a future video, though, because we don't know the release date of Dark Dimension 6, so I think it's a bit early and premature to create a video and a table on this when we have more characters coming out, like I said, every single week. But we'll be discussing that at a later time. Ultron and the Masters of Evil, all of them, the most amazing Crucible team to ever come out. They literally wreck pretty much everything with the exception of Tangled Web Eternals because of that stupid rule change that they made in there. But nonetheless, they are literally the best Crucible offense team. I don't think that you need to build Absorbing Man and Titania, or is it Absorbing Man and Moonstone as high? But I would definitely, obviously, because Kang is up here, take him to tier 17. Frankly, I'm probably taking him to Dark Dimension 6 if you want to 18 him in the future. Ultron for sure, 16, and Titania is actually pretty good. I just have an issue with Absorbing Man. Maybe it's my lack of stars, but nonetheless, this whole team is pretty meta, and you should be considering them. Hela and Zombie Iron Man, they're not just a war team. They're not just a war duo. I think they're actually really strong writ large, and so they are in the meta category. I do have Hela at gear tier 16. I do not have Zombie Iron Man at gear tier 16, but I do have him at gear tier 15. And if I had more of the Chromium, I believe it is, then I would probably take him to 16. I think they're both really, really strong, and they're quite meta in their own right, and they're not just tied to their own game mode, despite getting more bonuses in war as well. So very strong duo here. Magneto, and what I like about this, by the way, is that there's just two characters, so you can plug and play with other characters as well, because there's lots of kind of like standalone characters that you could use in here, such as the Eternals or other characters in War, especially. But lots of theory crafting potential here, and I love that. Deathseed. So obviously a quite highly meta team. They're going to be used in the Incursion raid. We're going to see them alive for at least until hopefully the winter of this year. So that means that you should still invest in them, including Archangel. Yes. So he's going to be... Now, the reason why he's not in the must build category is I don't feel he's as good of a Horseman character standalone as the others are. So obviously he's in his own right a must build, but these are kind of like at least gear tier 16 characters. So this is the Death Seed team here. Magneto could be and probably might be a character that I will take to Dark Dimension 6 in the non-legendary Horseman section, and I might just be end up taking non-Horseman legendaries through both of those lanes, because you guys know, if you were following, there's a non-Horseman legendary lane and a lane where you can also include Horseman and Apocalypse. I might just do both of them with non-Horseman characters. That way I can do whatever it is, 6 or 8 nodes with that. So Magneto will qualify for this as well. The rest of them, though, of course, because Death Seed is the main mutant raid team, that you'll want to keep them at gear tier 16 at least. Emma Frost is an interesting one here. She always seems to crop up her head. Now, she is a meta character because of her passive and her speed mechanics, but she's not a must build gear-wise. You can probably just build her up to gear tier 14, maybe even 15, and that might be enough, right? You don't need to take her to 16 plus. But I wanted to put her in this category anyway, so people are aware of the usage of Emma Frost, and that I think that honestly she's going to still remain meta due to the fact that she has that 10% speed mechanic on her passive. So I wanted to list that there. Of course, we have the new warriors: Cloak, Deathpool, Dagger, Firestar, and Gwenpool, which would be added to this list as well. Again, next patch character, so I don't really have their icons at this time. They're going to be meta. They're going to be Cosmic Crucible meta. They could be meta elsewhere as well. They could also very well be Dark Dimension 6 picks for the city category. So with the exception of Deathpool, Cloak, Dagger, Firestar, and Gwenpool all have the city trait, and as recently reworked and new characters for the city team, there's really not a lot of great new city characters or recently updated. So that gives them an extra little nudge there. And if you really care about Cosmic Crucible, then I think that this is going to be a team that you're going to want to build. Now, their usefulness in war, I'm not really sure if it's going to be like of the meta category, but nonetheless, people who are in the meta category are teams that are going to be valuable in more than one game mode. And I think that the new Warriors qualify there. Quicksilver, I haven't had enough usage personally with him to really understand, how good he's going to be. But I'm willing to bet that he is going to be very meta because of his ability of plug and play with other teams that are not quite complete, or even just taking out some characters from other teams and one character from another team and adding him in there and doing new things. I'm going to be doing a lot more. I'm slowly building him right now, and I'm going to be doing more testing going forward. I'm hoping that I can get him to 4 yellow, 4 red pretty soon. But that's kind of the area where I would wait before investing into Quicksilver. Try to get to at least 4 yellow, 4 red, because he's going to need the stats. And so I think that's where you're going to see him shine a little bit more when you get that 4 yellow, 4 red, if you're aiming to do Quicksilver. If not, feel free to leave him on the bench, but I personally think that he deserves the meta category based on his kit. Now let's talk about the must builds. These are the apps, some of the newest characters in the game, some of the ones that you're going to be using. I'll tell you who's not the newest characters, who are still on here though, are the Eternals. I'm just going to jump ahead and talk about the Eternals. I still think that they're going to be kicking for some time. Will we get more Eternals? I don't know, maybe. And that'll just make them even better. They've been a mainstay for so long, that there's just so much use for them everywhere. Dark Dimension, War, Crucible, they're everywhere, and so this is some of your best investment for some of the older characters that I think you have to build. Now let's talk about Spider Weaver. Despite what happened with the whole 7 yellow thing, the Spider Weaver gate, I still think that she's going to be a very solid character for time to come. Yes, she is an Apocalypse character, but in her own right, she's very strong. I think I'm going to be taking her to gear tier 18, and so she's one of the few sort of Apocalypse characters that I think will deserve gear tier 18. And because I have her 7 yellow, 7 red, her stats are very high. So if you were a part of that Spider Weaver gate, I would recommend this going forward because she's a very strong character. Rebirth, now very solid. No-brainer. Incursion team, you're going to need this in Incursion raids. I shouldn't really need to say that much about it. U.S. Agent, though, is the weakest one in my opinion. So if you're going to gear anyone first, I think it's going to be OG Cap and Agent Venom. I think those are the ones that you're going to need to focus your gear in. I think everyone should be gear tier 16 at a bare minimum. Some of these might deserve a little bit more, but we'll talk about that, I think, down the line when we start discussing more things like Dark Dimension 6. Nick Fury, oh my god, he's going to be one of my first gear tier 18, I think. He is just crushing it. Nick Fury and his rework and his summons are just absolutely insanity, and the impact on this is just crazy. Nick Fury is crazy. He's gear tier 17 on my roster. I have him at 7 yellow, 7 red. Get some red stars on this guy. Get some 6 and 7 reds on this guy. He is insane. Rework was one of the best legendary reworks to date. He's going to go to Dark Dimension 6 for sure. Now, we have also the Horsemen of Morgan Le Fay, Red Hulk, and Rogue. Even though I'm not recommending the wider teams down below because I think that they're dropping off, I think there's still a lot of standalone value for these characters as solo entities. I think that even if you don't build the wider team, I think that you can still use them in hybrid situations. I think that you could still do that. Now, the one flip coin is that if you don't build the entire team, you won't get the upgraded skills for them by doing the saga, which then means you cannot get the buffs to carry over to the other horsemen within a horseman unit. And so that is a small issue, but it doesn't stop you from using these characters standalone still within other groups of hybrid units. And I think that for newer accounts and mid-game accounts, you're seeing that a lot more, especially for some of these older teams where you're not really building the full teams anymore, but some of these legendaries still have a lot of value standalone, and it's just one character to build versus a group of 5. You know, and it's a lot less resources to do on the legendaries, which you're inevitably going to unlock as you run the Scourges. Kang, we already talked about him. He's crazy. He's going to gear tier 18, absolutely smashing it. And then we have the Incursion team. The Invaders team. They just came out, and they're going to be meta for the Incursion raid, and they're the newest. They're great. I'm not a huge fan of Union Jack, but Bucky, I have some pretty high levels on him. He's almost level 95, and obviously Nick Fury in that team. Those are the two best, in my opinion, but to keep your characters alive, you're going to want some gear. Honestly, you probably just take them all to gear tier 16. Anyways, even if you don't think you need it now, at the higher difficulties of Incursion Raid, most likely it's going to be geared towards that, and you're going to want that. And so this is the list. This is pretty much covers most of the characters. Characters that were not on here. Probably I'll tell you what I don't like. I don't like war characters that don't contain a legendary. I think those are traps. That's why. Okay, so yes, War Dogs had Shuri, but I mean newer characters. So that's why I think that Nova and the Nowhere team is going to be insane everywhere, because Weapon X was a very solid meta team. Weapon X is not on this list because they're old, but they were great, you know, at the time when I built them. If this was a tier list for like a year and a half ago, Omega Red would be on that list, but they're not now because I don't think those are characters that you should be focusing on now. The point of all of this was basically to show you guys that you should pay attention to the things that are in front of you. Pay attention to the characters that are more recent within the last 6 months especially, but there are a handful of characters, as you can see on this list, that still make it in my opinion anyways. These are the characters, as patch goes on, we're going to do this every single patch because characters are going to shift up and down. There's going to be new releases. We're seeing like 6 characters a patch, so characters are just being chucked at us, and you need to make sure that you're staying on top of what's in front of you because those characters are going to be the most powerful and the most important that you should think about. Except when they're not. And I'll be sure to help you guys along the way when I think that there's maybe some characters that are not quite meta enough to invest in. And you'll just have to keep track of my channel and keep track of my videos to figure out who those are. So that's the end of this video, everyone. I hope that this helps. I'm going to be posting this on my Discord coming soon as well. So until next time, stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you all later. Boilon signing out.